Football on Off the Ball.
With William Hill. Who you got? 18 plus. See gamblingcare.ie.
It is Thursday evening. It is time for us to chat football with John Giles. John, how are you getting on?
I'm good, Will, thank you. And yourself?
Sure, look, I'm struggling along at this stage, John, in a rainy start to August after a very rainy July, but at least the Premier League is back next week. We've got the Community Shield at the weekend, the Women's World Cup on. At least there's plenty of football to watch at the moment. Definitely, we'll keep going. We might start off with the Women's World Cup, John, because I know you've been following the team throughout the competition, but the fallout from the Nigeria game, that 0-0 draw on Monday, was Vera Pauw, the Ireland manager, admitting that Katie McCabe, the Ireland captain, had gone over to try and get her to make a substitution and add some legs down the left-hand side of the team. What was your take on the fact that the captain goes over to try and tell the coach what to do?
I don't think it's the right thing to do, Will, to be honest. The manager or the coach, whoever it might be, is in charge. And I must say, from my experience, I think as soon as the coach takes over, which he did 4 years ago, from day one, or from the start, she's the boss. And players can't make suggestions, especially the captain can't make suggestions as to who is to be subbed. I don't think that's on, because the coach herself is watching the match, and she's been able to see who needs to be subbed or not. And I think what happened in this situation, I think Katie McCabe, who is a very, very good player and captain, suggested that one of her, Sinead Farrelly, should be subbed. Well, the coach is watching the match, and she should be able to make that decision. And also, I think the coach slipped up by saying, well, as far as I was concerned, Farrelly was the fittest player on the pitch. She shouldn't have to answer that. In other words, from the day she takes over the job, with the players that she has, she establishes that she's the boss, and she will make all the decisions that have to be made. So that's 4 years ago. Well,
you can give us a perspective on both being a coach and also being a player. Like, you would have been, one of the leaders at Leeds. Like, Billy Bremner would have been at a point where he would have been captain. I would think Billy Bremner would never have dreamed, or you wouldn't have dreamed of going over to Don Revie and saying, hey, give that guy the hook and bring someone else on.
No, the manager would have established that from the start. He would establish that from the start. When I came into the club after Jack Charlton and Billy Bremner, but he would let me know that. So would Matt Busby. Matt Busby was a gentleman type of manager. But in no way could any of the players, captain, whether he was Noel Campbell or Maurice Setters, go over to the pitch and say, look, I think Joe Bloggs needs to be subbed, or anything for that matter. In fact, Matt Busby wasn't on the bench. He used to be sitting in the stand, in the first row of the stand. But that was my experience of managers, that you had to lay the law down straight away. And I'm surprised, maybe the coach did lay the law down 4 years ago, and the player, Katie McCabe, might think that she has the say-so to make that particular statement. But you could tell by the reaction from the coach that she was in charge of it. Has to be in charge of the situation. You can't do it any other way, Will, in my opinion.
I think it's okay, John, it should probably be encouraged for players to give feedback to the coaching team and to have their input, and for the coach to listen. But that can't really happen in game when it's Vera Pauw's decision who comes on or off. I think that's fine if you have a meeting in between games, or if you're consulting with your captain, but not on the pitch.
No. My experience with Don Revie and Matt Busby and that, they could say during meetings, particularly the day before the match, has anybody got anything to say? And of course players could say, look, boss, I think this, that, and the other, and he'd say, well, no, or yes, I think that's a good idea. But you have to get it past him. And certainly on the pitch, when the matches are on, the substitutions are to be made. I know Matt Busby, Don Revie, any manager I came across would not like it if you came over, even Billy Bremner or anybody, to say, I think Eddie Gray should be subbed. No way, it just wouldn't happen. So I'm surprised that wasn't established over the 4 years. Now, I might be wrong. It might have been established, and skipper McCabe would do it. If she does that, then it's totally out of order, and I don't think she should be doing it anyway, because she's the boss is there, the coach is there, and she is there to make the decisions. But she should have established that 4 years ago. In other words, don't come over to me and say one of your colleagues needs to be subbed. I will watch what's going on, and I will make the decision on it. Now, when you during the week, if you want to have a discussion about the match and what should happen, anybody got any ideas? That's okay, because the manager is asking for the opinions of some of the players, but not during the match and at the match, because it's led to a lot of bad feelings, I would imagine, in the camp.
Would you have laid down the law, John, when you were in coaching with, say, West Brom or with Shamrock Rovers or with the Ireland team? Like, would you have made it very clear early on that you were the guy who makes the decisions and kind of here are the rules for my setup? Definitely.
Actually, when I was at West Brom at one time, I had Nobby Stiles working for me and Norman Hunter, and I had established with them from the start, whether in the dressing room before the match or half-time or anything else, don't say anything to the players until you run it past me, right? Because what can happen, say Norman is talking to a fullback and he tells him to get in, the ball's into the field to get on this, in the cover position, and there's a goal scored from it, right? And I can say to the fullback, what were you doing there? Well, that's what Norman told me to do. Because everybody has different opinions on the game. So you have to really lay down the law that after the match or during the week, if you want to have a team talk, definitely players can say what they want to say, and then you work it out, but not during the game, or before the game or half-time, and certainly not during the game. There's no way that you would watch a match and one of your players come to you with the captain or anybody else and say, I want to, I think you should sub Joe Bloggs. You wouldn't stand for it, Will, in my opinion.
Probably not the best thing to happen to Vera Pauw either, at a time, John, when the FAI are considering whether to extend this contract or not, and there's only a few weeks left on it, and the team are now back and there's going to be a review by the FAI. That kind of the last thing to come out of the World Cup is the coach being a little bit undermined by their captain in the last game.
Yeah, it was bad, because it's the first time the Irish ladies have qualified for the World Cup. That's right, isn't it?
It is, yeah. First major tournament.
And she did it. She did that. No other coach has done it, and they've had some good coaches, I believe, but no coach has done it. So again, I feel sorry for her in this respect. But again, I would go back and say, 4 years ago, when you establish this cannot happen. Now, she might have done that, and young McCabe would go over, Katie McCabe would go over and make her statement that she wanted the player off because she was getting tired. That happens as well. I'm saying that shouldn't have happened, because maybe she hasn't laid down the law that she doesn't want anybody to do that. Now, maybe she has laid down the law, and Katie McCabe might go and do it anyway. We don't know, Richard, but it should. I don't think it should happen. In my experience in football, when I was manager of a team, I wouldn't want any player to come to me and say, like Eddie Gray should be off. He's getting tired. You couldn't. My man Busby would go mad if any player tried to do that, even in the dressing room. They'd make sure, look, I'm in charge of the situation. I'm the boss, and I can see what's going on. That's what I'm there for. So it has to be established very, very early on and stated regularly. You know what I mean, Will?
Yeah, absolutely.
That this doesn't happen. I'm in charge of the situation. I can see the game. I will make the decisions of who's to be subbed and who's not to be subbed. And I don't want a player coming over to suggest or ask for it in that way. So please don't do it.
And in a way as well, John, Vera Pauw mentioned that Farrelly had been playing particularly well, was one of the best players on the pitch. In a way, that really shouldn't matter, does it? Like, whether Farrelly was playing well or not, Vera Pauw doesn't have to justify why she's not taking her off.
Exactly. She should not make a response to that. You know, she shouldn't give her opinion whether she's the best player or not. What she should say, look, I'm not going to discuss it with you whether she should or shouldn't be off or should be subbed. Right? I'll make the decision. Thank you very much.
Community Shield.
She shouldn't have made the response that, like, oh, no, I didn't do it because I felt that she was the best player on the pitch. That didn't come into it. That doesn't come into the equation when you're having a discussion with one of the players who's suggesting to you that one of the players should be subbed. You're the boss. Said, no, thank you. I'm the boss here. And it shouldn't happen. But it shouldn't happen in the first place.
Community Shield coming up on Sunday, John. It was a charity shield, as we call it for a long time. They like to call it the Community Shield these days. Anytime I think of your attachment with the charity shield, I think of the Leeds-Liverpool game, which kind of boiled over a little bit. This is obviously the kind of traditional curtain raiser for the season. Did you enjoy going to Wembley to play in these games back when Leeds would have had them as the start of their season?
Oh, definitely. It was very difficult to play at Wembley. You know, the only way you could play at Wembley was a cup final or an international match. It was very difficult to get a match at Wembley. Well, you know, it was either the cup final, well, then the League Cup came into it, but there was a lot of English players who terrific players that I knew never got a game at Wembley. They weren't picked for England and they never got to the cup final, especially the old days, because there was only the FA Cup final and then you had the League Cup final, and everybody can play at Wembley nowadays, but it was very, very difficult as a player to play at Wembley.
And I know when you're kind of a player trying to get sharp for the start of the season, these days you're going to the Far East or America if you're a player probably to play pre-season, and it's probably different now compared to even about 20 years ago. But all the same, I would think for most players, John, a week out from the start of the season proper, getting a chance to go and play against another good side for a piece of silverware is probably the ideal way to lead into a season if you're Man City or Arsenal for this weekend.
Funny enough, Will, I don't agree with you at all on it. Because when you're back for your pre-season day, well, in my day, you'd had a few weeks off, right? And we under Don Revie, never played away against a top team. We played local teams like Bradford and teams that were near us there, because it's not right. When you come back for pre-season training, you're doing that to get fit, to be able to play in a match. Now, what's happened now, because of the financial situation, teams are going away, and they haven't done their training, and it's very easy to get injuries when you do that. But it's all about money now. It's not good. Now, when I say we played Bradford and teams like that, and teams near us, when you got 2 or 3 weeks, 4 weeks behind your training, then you could play a better team. But mostly at Leeds, we didn't. And teams in those days didn't go abroad. Will, you know, the money wasn't in it in that particular way. Now it's all about money, but I think it's wrong, because you're not really, like, you see the teams playing out during the week. They've only been back training a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Well, you need the 4 weeks to get match fit. Now, especially in my day, because you used to get a big break. The players don't get such a big break now. And that's not so good either, you know, because you do need a break. You need a good break after seeing the amount of matches that the players are playing now. But I think to this day, Manchester United, any of the top teams, Liverpool, could be playing local teams till you get your fitness to get ready to play for the start of the season. But money in a big way is involved now, Will, and the clubs are getting a lot of money to go and play, whether it be in America or wherever they're playing. It's all about money now.
And I don't think the clubs mind too much if lads are in a 12-hour flight, which probably kills the preparation on the week as you're getting ready for the start of the season as well. Arsenal,
exactly. Honestly, it's really important to get to pre-season training is pre-season training, and you start off doing certain things, and then after the first week you do different things, doing all that, and then you start playing the matches, and you play say half an hour each way till you start getting going. Now the players are going. You see them; they're flying long flights, and they're going away, and they're playing each other, and they're top matches. So I wouldn't be in favour of it, because I think you're bound to pick up some injuries.
We might get an idea where Arsenal are at on Sunday afternoon. They've spent a lot of money, about 200 million spent in this window to bring in Declan Rice, Kai Havertz and your Timber coming in as well. These are players that Mikel Arteta wanted, John, and I guess if Arsenal are going to close the gap to Man City, it was that squad depth that was required. The club have gone out and backed their manager this summer.
In a big way, and he deserves it. He's done extremely well at Arsenal. They had a good run at it last year, and I think they've made a decision that he's the man. We're going to back him now, and he's got some players in, especially Wright. I mean, they've beaten Man City in the transfer market for Rice. That's a big deal. I think he's a bit unlucky. I think that the centre forward got injured, didn't he?
Yeah, Gabriel Jesus picked up a knock, which isn't ideal for the start of the season. He's going to miss the first few weeks, so you'd want to have him obviously straight from the start. But I guess the argument is they've Kai Havertz who's come in, and that's probably what wasn't there last season, John, was if they lost one of those players, if a Saka or Jesus or Martinelli got injured, they maybe didn't have the cover. Now they've got a bit of extra strength this season.
No, they're definitely backing him. I think it was their small panel last year really spoiled the chances of winning, because if you go back to the World Cup, and that was taking a lot out of the players. There was a good few Arsenal players in the World Cup, and there was a good few Manchester City players in the World Cup. But when the Man City players come up for Guardiola, he had a big squad, as we know, a huge squad. Arsenal didn't, and I think they got tired in the run in, to be honest. And I think that's what changed it. For City, the big squad that they had. And nowadays you do need a big squad with all the different competitions that the players. Arsenal have the League Cup, the FA Cup, the League, the Champions League. It's never ending for the players now. You need a huge squad now, Will. There's no doubt about that, and I think they're backing them now to do that.
Would you agree with Jurgen Klopp, what he said a couple of days ago when he said no one in the Premier League is going to be able to compete with Man City? He's almost given up the ghost on anyone challenging City this season.
I can't believe it. That was in yesterday's paper. What he said, I just wrote it down. Nobody besides City can have the real target to become champions again this year. All the other teams fight for Champions League places, and that's what we will do as well. I can't believe that. I mean, they've spent a few bob, Liverpool. I mean, Liverpool are a top team, and they should be looking to beat Manchester City. So I don't know why he's saying that. It doesn't make sense for a manager in the position that he's in, and with such a great club like Liverpool, to be sort of saying, well, City are going to do it, we will be also Rans. I just don't see it at all, unless he thinks, well, we'll do it that way and then surprise everybody, and we'll take a bit of pressure off us. But I can't see Liverpool being in that position in any way whatsoever. They're one of the top teams. He's got a lot of money, spent a lot of money. Some players have gone, but I'm amazed at the comments he's made in that respect.
Yeah, look, last season, just looking at the table here, they were 22 points behind City last year when they finished in 5th, but that was like Liverpool's worst season in recent memory. Before that, they win the league in 2020, they brought City to a point in 2022, brought it down to the last day, and they lost the league by a point in 2019. The reality is, John, the last 3 or 4 years, Liverpool have been very close to Man City.
Oh, very close. I'm amazed at what he's saying. I mean, they have lost a few players, but there again, he was having to go at the Saudis. But the fact is, they sold 2 players themselves. The Saudis, they let Fabinho go and Henderson. I mean, did they have to sell them? But he has spent money again to get players in.
I'd suggest, John, when 55 million was flashed in front for Fabinho and Henderson, especially with Henderson's age, they were probably happy enough to take the 55 and reinvest it.
Well, if he has reinvested it, which I can understand that, but don't complain about the Saudis. You know, if you're doing business with the Saudis, don't complain. Don't complain about them taking over the game. That's what he's saying, you know. But anyway, it's a big season for everybody next season. But I'm just surprised that a manager of his quality, that he's done brilliantly for Liverpool, can just say, well, you know, it's going to be cities, and we all of us have a go at runners up. That's what he's actually saying, and I just don't get that at all.
It's an unusual attitude before a ball is kicked. But City this year, John, I think they're still the team to beat. I mean, Gundogan's gone to Barcelona, Mahrez has gone to Saudi Arabia as well. That weakens them a little bit, but they've got Kovacic in from Chelsea to kind of fill the gap left by Gundogan. It looks like they're going to sign Guardiol, the Croatian defender, for a lot of money, probably around 70 million from Leipzig as well. So it's kind of a couple in, a couple out.
Yes.
If you look at Man City winning the treble last year, they still look like the team with the best squad in the Premier League, don't they?
Oh yeah, but they have lost a couple of good players. I know that Mahrez is gone, as you say, Gundogan is gone. I'm surprised that Mahrez is gone, but you know, they're two big players, so he has to replace them. He's got a couple of young players coming in. He's got Kovacic, as you say. You wouldn't think he'd be in that standard. He's a good player, but I didn't think he'd be as good as the players that have just gone. But we'll have to wait and see on that. But he might bring a couple of the young players in. I think Foden and one or two other young players might get more games. But he has got that man. As far as I know, you can pronounce his name. He's just a Croatian centre half.
Yeah, Guardiol. Yeah.
According to the 78 mil he's cost, but you know, he has spent a few quid. And he does have money to spend, although they have to be careful with the amount of money to spend, Will, don't they?
Yeah, well, you always got to keep an eye on financial fair play, but probably helped again by having the, you know, Mahrez and Gundogan, who were probably on big wages leaving the club. Interesting one that you mentioned, Phil Foden as well, John, because, you know, in a way, Grealish kind of took that position over on the left-hand side attacking midfield last year and made it his own. Foden can play in a few different positions, but maybe now with him gone and the speculation about Bernardo Silva's future as well, potentially we could see a really big season from Phil Foden, because that kid's got a lot of potential.
I think he's brilliant. One of the best young players in the Premiership. And any time he's come on, even up to centre forward or outside left, outside right, he can do it. So I could imagine him getting more games now. I think Guardiola would know this lad is really ready for a full season. So he could make a difference for them.
One to watch for the season ahead. John, thanks a million for joining us.
Thanks, Will.
Football on Off the Ball
with William Hill. Who you got? 18 plus. See gamblingcare.ie.